while the glory fills and fame, things are going okay. Find a little puppy love makes a day, but it's in the moon for once at night.
Will Oldham is an American singer-songwriter who has used various names through his career. So he started releasing albums in 1993. He released 2 albums under the name Palace Brothers, 2 albums under the name Palace Music, then 1 album under the name Will Oldham. And in 1999, he started using the name Bonnie Prince Billy. And he has released, I believe, at the point of recording this, 20 albums, including some collaborations and remix albums under that name. He is also an actor and has appeared in various film and TV series. Hi, my name's Dan. So this was the 3rd studio album by Will Oldham and is the first under the name Palace Music. And is my first encounter with any of his music. I know that there are other albums by his coming up on this list. I had not connected until I read up on it, the name Palace Music and the name Bonnie Prince Billy, but now I have, and so I know that there's going to be more for him coming up. So let's try and describe this. Acclaimed Music describes this as folk rock. Wikipedia describes this as folk. I'm not happy with either of those descriptions because, of course, I know better. So I would actually describe this as lo-fi / slacker rock. Now, I'm not sure that I have perfectly got a handle on what slacker rock is, but it feels like it's got this kind of lethargy to it, and this definitely does that. I think the word folk isn't a good one to use here, but I'm also aware that when I use lo-fi, that can mean various different things. So in this case, I'm taking it not to mean that the recording quality is lo-fi, which is probably actually the most accurate use of the term, but that the playing and the singing, and in some senses the production, are not aiming for perfection in the sound. It's not. Yeah, very much not. I think this is it. It's avoiding perfection. I would describe it as mostly as slow rock. Some of it is a little bit heavier, but mostly it's quite light. It's mostly a kind of rock band, and it's quite an introspective feel to the whole thing. And it's deliberately not slick, which gives it quite an organic feel. There are times when there are discords. I think some of them are deliberate, and I think some of them are just wrong notes that they've left in, or he's left in. Some of it has got elements of out of tune. That depends on what instruments you've got. But it's just some of the time, and out of time as well, so it's not tight in that sense. So often, stuff that isn't played well puts me off. But I think there must be some kind of threshold, or there must be something else. So I have this theory that I call my theory of complaints, which I'm kind of enjoying playing with a little bit, which is that sometimes when we complain about something, the reasons that we give are not actually the things that put us off that thing, but often it's because something's missing, and it's hard to identify sometimes what it is that's missing, or lacking in some ways. So I'm not going to go into this deeply this time. I did it once. So on this occasion, I think that there are other qualities to it that mean that I am less bothered by the lack of professional playing quality, let's put it that way. So I wouldn't say it doesn't bother me at all, but it's not the thing that's kind of jumping out at me and going, no, this is something I don't want to listen to. The whole thing is, I would describe it as kind of plodding and awkward. And occasionally I like a nice metaphor, so I'm going to say this is actually it's a simile, is like an elderly maths teacher, and basically this is music that has leather elbow patches on its corduroy jacket. Um, and I hope that kind of gives you the feel. The singing um, is not in tune, but it aims most of the time to be in tune, but it just doesn't hit it quite. A reasonable amount of the time it's missing the note. Again, it kind of fits with the overall feel and ethos of the music, though. It's just not uh, done in a way that you kind of very strongly think they're professional musicians. He's got quite a fragile voice, and I think that has an attraction to it. So he sounds quite vulnerable when he sings. Um, there are some adult themes and some adult language in this album, so mild warning on that. And the songs are generally, I would say, about life, maybe about country rather than city life. Occasionally, it has a feel of the content might be folky. Maybe that's where the folk labels come from, but I wouldn't say by any stretch all of it. And I feel like it's a bit of a spurious label. It can be quite poetic at times, and it's definitely curious and interesting. It's unusual uh, in sometimes in the take on life that he's taking. So I would say that. So I think the songwriting's strong here, and I can see why it's on the list. I will admit it has a certain charm of its own, and I also realise that there are people who will absolutely adore this album because it will just speak to them, and it'll just they'll feel really in touch with this guy. He's very approachable. He's very kind of. It feels like he's quite real about what he's doing. For me, I respect it, but it doesn't particularly touch me. And I think that's okay. Obviously, different music for different people. So I kind of like it a bit, but I'm not one of those people who is gonna absolutely adore this album. But as I say, there will be people, and you might be one of them. So, and I think that's all fine. Um, so that's what I think of this album. I'd love to hear from you, for you to tell me what you think of this album, especially if you're one of those people who I think will absolutely love it. I'd love to know why you love it and what it is about it that really gets you. Or for anybody, whatever you think about this album, please do share. And do that by leaving a comment down here. And that's it from me for now.
When's a crime forgiven by them? You can never live it down. I can only